Hello, my name is Nathan Scott. I've lived 33 years on this earth. Okay? And if I had to sum it up, my life feels like one of those press books I write for the Boston Herald pages filled with gritty headlines. Sharp edges of truth cutting through. The ink interspersed with fleeting moments of warmth that never quite dispel the underlying haze of doubt and tension. It's a life where integrity isn't just a choice. It's a compulsion. One that often leaves me standing alone in the storm while everyone else seeks shelter. I call Boston, Massachusetts, home a city. That's a paradox of old-world charm and modern hustle. The winding cobblestone streets of Beacon Hill clash with the sleek skyscrapers piercing the skyline, and the sea breeze from Massachusetts Bay carries the salty temps of the ocean mixed with the distant blare of ship horns echoing across the harbor. It's a place where history whispers from every corner, but the present demands you shout to be heard. That's where I ply my trade as an investigative journalist for the Boston Herald, a role that requires a spine of steel and a heart armored against the backlash. Sometimes it makes me feel like a lone wolf prowling among a flock of sheep, sniffing out the predators disguised in wool. My roots, though, trace back to a more modest beginning. I come from a solidly middle-class family, not the kind that vacations in the Hamptons or drives luxury cars, but one where the bills were always paid on time, and there was enough left for a modest Christmas. That upbringing forged me into who I am, calm under pressure, fiercely protective of the vulnerable, and unafraid to voice uncomfortable truths, even if it means ruffling feathers or outright starting wars. Let me take you back to the start, too. Paint the full picture. My childhood unfolded in Portland, Maine, a quaint coastal town that, on the surface, exudes peace with its lighthouses standing sentinel over rocky shores and lobster boats bobbing in the harbor. But beneath that serene facade, undercurrents of small-town secrets and unspoken tensions swirled like the tides in Casco Bay. Portland was where I was born and raised, in a cozy two-story wooden house with creaky floors and a backyard that sloped gently toward the bay. The view from my bedroom window was a constant companion. The glittering water in summer, gray and brooding in winter, always reminding me that life like the sea could turn treacherous without warning. My father, John Scott, was the anchor of our family, a retired state employee who spent decades in the local tax office. He was a tall man with prematurely gray hair that made him look wiser than his years, sharp blue eyes that missed nothing, and a deep, resonant voice that carried authority even in casual conversation. Dad lived by a code of traditional values: family first, dignity above all, and never give the neighbors reason to gossip. He was the kind of man who mowed the lawn every Saturday, paid taxes early, and believed that hard work and rule following were the keys to a smooth life. My mother, Kathleen Scott, complimented him perfectly. Also a retired civil servant from the city administrative office. She was a gentle soul with a warm smile that could light up a room, but beneath that softness lay a conservative core, always fretting about the family's image in the eyes of society. She was the heart of the home, baking pies from scratch and organizing community events. But her worry lines deepened whenever anything threatened our perfect facade. They were quintessential baby boomers, hard-working, frugal, and convinced. That life rewarded those who played by the book. And then there was my sister, Brooke, 6 years my junior. From the moment she was born, she was my golden little sister bundle of energy, feisty and stubborn. The kind of girl who made everyone shake their heads in equal parts exasperation and admiration. Brooke wasn't one to sit quietly in the corner. She charged into life headfirst. I remember her at school, getting into scraps, not out of malice, but because she couldn't abide injustice. One vivid memory stands out. When she was just 8. She barreled into a bigger boy who'd been teasing a disabled classmate. She landed a punch that surprised even her, but the boy fought back, leaving her with a swollen cheek. Behind the school, but before I could console her, I tracked down the bully and gave him a thrashing he wouldn't forget. "I won't let anyone hurt you anymore," I whispered to her as I wiped away her tears, and that promise etched itself into my soul, unbreakable even now. Despite her tough exterior, Brooke lived on a wave of emotions. She'd cry alone in her room when things got too heavy. "No Only I knew how to pull her out of it with stories of imaginary adventures we'd dreamed up as kids, like sailing pirate ships across Casco Bay or exploring hidden caves filled with treasure. Our family was close-knit, bound by those simple rituals that make memories stick. Sunday dinners were sacred, Dad grilling steaks on the backyard barbecue.
Oh.
The smoky aroma mingling with Mom's famous apple pie, warm and cinnamon-scented. We'd gather around the worn oak table, sharing the week's tales. Dad would regale us with quirky tax cases anonymous, stories of evasion and audits that always ended with a moral about honesty. Mom would proudly show off her flower garden petals, blooming in defiance of Maine's harsh winters. Brooke, ever the enthusiast, would animatedly recount her volleyball games, her voice rising with each spike and save. And me? The bookish kid with a nose always buried in the Portland Press Herald. I'd share articles that caught my eye, stories of corruption or heroism that sparked debates around the table, but that closeness wasn't without its fractures. My straight-talking nature often ignited tensions like a spark in dry tinder. I was 15 when I uncovered Dad's secret, a small debt from sports gambling, hidden in a drawer of old receipts. I couldn't keep quiet. It burst out during one of those Sunday dinners, right between the mashed potatoes and gravy. "Dad, why are you hiding this? It's going to get worse if you don't face it." The room went silent. Dad's face turned beet red. Mom burst into tears, and the air thickened with accusation. "Son, why don't you think about the family's dignity?" Dad bellowed, his voice echoing off the walls. "But I only thought about the truth," I shot back, my voice steady, despite the knot in my stomach. "Hiding it only makes things worse." From that day, a shadow lingered over our home, like a dark cloud pregnant with storm, ready to unleash at any provocation. As I grew older, the pull of the wider world grew stronger. I left Portland for college in Boston, majoring in journalism, a choice that filled my parents with pride laced with anxiety. "Son, journalism is dangerous," Mom would say, her voice trembling as she hugged me goodbye. "Always clashing with power, digging up things people want buried." But I couldn't imagine another path. Investigative journalism didn't choose me. I chose it, driven by an unyielding belief in justice, in shining light on the shadows where corruption. My first big case cemented that conviction. It was an investigation into a local company. Dumping toxic waste into the Androscoggin River back in Maine, I spent months knee-deep in it, gathering evidence from leaked documents, interviewing victims, ordinary folks from Milltown's hood, developed cancers from the polluted water, their lives unraveling like frayed ropes. When the article hit the presses, the company faced lawsuits, fines, and shutdowns. I even won my first award, a regional journalism prize that came with a plaque and a sense of vindication. In that moment, I felt like a knight in tarnished armor, defending the defenseless. But victory came with a price. Friends drifted away. Fearing association with my troublemaking, and my family fretted over my safety, whispering that I was too straightforward for my own good. Now, at 33, my life in Boston is settled into a rhythm of stability, not serenity. I rent a modest apartment in Back Bay, with bay windows overlooking the Charles River, where rowers skim the water at dawn like ghosts in the mist. My mornings are ritualistic. Wake at 5 a.m., brew a pot of strong black coffee, its bitter aroma filling the air, and pore over the news feeds before heading to the Herald's newsroom, a chaotic hive of clacking keyboards, ringing phones, and the constant hum of deadlines. The work is relentless. Probing corruption in City Hall is unraveling financial scandals that leave tycoons exposed, and occasionally delving into personal stories that tug at the heartstrings, like the recent one about a young woman harassed by her corporate boss. I helped her go public, and he was fired amid a media firestorm. That's the rush, the knowledge that I'm making a difference. Even if it means nights alone with a takeout pizza and the glow of my laptop screen, my family remains my anchor. Despite the occasional squalls, weekends often find me driving north. On Interstate 95, the highway unspooling like a ribbon through pine forests and coastal marshes, classic rock blasting from the speakers to shake off the week's fatigue, Mom and Dad are fully retired now, tending their vegetable garden in the backyard of that old wooden house. Dad spends afternoons on the porch, newspaper in hand, grumbling about politics. Mom busies herself with the local book club, discussing novels over tea and scones. They cling to their traditional views, settle down, start a family, avoid rocking the boat. I lie awake some nights in my Boston bed, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin, wondering if my bluntness makes me too harsh for their world. Like the last time I visited for dinner, I couldn't bite my tongue when Dad voiced support for a local politician I knew was knee-deep in graft. "Dad, he's corrupt, I've seen the evidence," I said, my voice cutting through the clatter of silverware. The room tensed. Mom's eyes reddened. Dad clenched his fist in silence. Brooke, ever the peacemaker in those moments, cracked a joke. "Brother Nathan, are you some superhero always saving the world?" Her laughter lightened the air, but I saw the worry in her eyes. Our family is tight-knit, but those cracks run deep, and they sting every time. Brooke, now 27, lives in Boston too, working at an advertising firm just a few blocks from my newsroom. She's still that stubborn firecracker, but with a romantic streak that's led to more than one heartbreak. We meet at coffee shops, sipping lattes amid the bustle, chatting about everything and nothing. "Brother Nathan, you're always worrying. Too much," she teases when I grill her about her latest boyfriend, but I know I'm her rock. No one messes with Brooke on my watch. I once saw her devastated after an ex scammed her out of $5,000. "I'm so stupid," she sobbed in my arms. I tracked the guy down, threatened exposure, and got every cent back. That's my rule, unbreakable. In my 30s, I'm still single, pouring my energy into work. Friends rib me, "Nathan, you're like an old man, all seriousness and no fun," but I don't mind. This life suits me. Free, driven by integrity, ready to shield those I love. Salty air and familiar streets. The last visit home, Mom and Dad threw a small party, and Brooke bubbled with excitement about her job. A new guy. "I met an amazing guy, Brother Nathan. This time it's real," she said, her smile radiant. My heart skipped, unease creeping. Tell me about him," I replied, keeping my tone even. And that's when the storm began, the story of Nick Harrington. The heir to a fortune built on auto parts, but hiding rot beneath the shine. "His name is Nick Harrington," Brooke said, her cheeks flushing as she met my gaze across the dinner table. The old wooden house in Portland felt warmer that evening, with Mom's apple pie cooling on the counter and Dad's grilled steaks still sizzling on the platter. But Brooke's words hung in the air like a shift in the wind. "He works at the family company Harrington Industries, a big corporation in auto parts manufacturing. Nathan, you won't believe it. He's different. Gallant, polite, and he really cares about me." She hesitated, then burst into laughter, her eyes sparkling. "Next week, I'll bring him home to introduce." "Mom, Dad, you'll like him, I bet," Dad raised an eyebrow. His curiosity piqued as he cut into his steak. "Family company, huh? Sounds promising. His family must be wealthy, right?" Mom smiled, placing a salad bowl on the table with her usual grace. "The important thing is how he treats you, Brooke. But if he's a decent person, Mom supports it." I stayed silent, sipping my iced water, but my journalist's mind was already worry. Nick Harrington. The name rang a faint bell like a half-remembered headline skimmed in the newsroom. Nothing concrete surfaced, but my gut honed by years of digging twitched. Anything too perfect often hid flaws, deep and dangerous. That evening, I didn't press. I just listened as Brooke rambled on about Nick. He'd studied in Europe, drove a sleek Porsche, and whisked her to upscale restaurants in Boston places, with names that made my wallet ache just thinking about them. He said he wants to take me to Paris, Brooke gushed, her eyes dreamy. "If everything goes well, we'll get engaged by the end of the year." I nearly choked on my water. Engaged? How long had they been together? I glanced at Mom and Dad, hoping they'd probe. But Dad nodded approvingly, and Mom beamed with contentment. "Sounds like a guy who knows how to take care of things, Dad." Said, "Bring him here so we can meet him." I couldn't hold back. "Brooke, How long have you known this guy? Why the rush? The table turned to me, Brooke's smile freezing. Brother Nathan, you're always suspicious of everything, she snapped, her voice edged. I've known Nick for 3 months, and he's a good person. Don't overdo it, okay? Mom placed a soothing hand on Brooke's shoulder. Nathan, don't worry. Let Brooke decide for herself. She's grown up now. I sighed, sensing the tension rising like steam from hot coffee. Pushing further would shatter the evening, but that unease gnawed at me. Nick Harrington. I'd check him out quietly. A week later, Brooke made good on her promise. It was a crisp Saturday evening in Portland. Early autumn winds, rustling golden. Leaves across the yard, carrying the chill of the bay. I drove up from Boston, not thrilled but determined to size up this perfect guy. The house buzzed with unusual energy. Dad in a freshly ironed shirt, Mom with her hair styled just so, her favorite apron tied over a nice dress. Brooke looked stunning in a red dress that hugged her figure, standing beside a tall man in a tailored gray suit, his hair slicked back, smile confident, almost rehearsed. Brother Nathan, this is Nick, Brooke introduced, her voice bubbling with excitement. Nick extended a hand, his grip firm, but his eyes cold, appraising. Nice to meet you, Nathan. Brooks told me a lot about you, the famous journalist in Boston. Right. His tone was smooth, like polished marble, but it sent a shiver down my spine. I nodded, forcing a polite smile. Not that famous, just doing what I love. Dinner was a masterclass in performance. Nick dominated the conversation, spinning tales of Harrington Industries, factories in 3 states, expansions to Asia, business trips to London and Tokyo. My parents were captivated, especially Dad. You remind me of my younger days, daring. To think big, he laughed, clapping Nick on the shoulder. Mom cooed over the expensive French wine Nick gifted her and the Cuban cigars for Dad. I want to thank you for raising such a wonderful Brooke, Nick said, gazing at her with saccharine sweetness. Brooke blushed, lacing her fingers with his, under the table. But I wasn't buying it. His answers were too slick, rehearsed. When I asked about the Asia expansion, he deflected swiftly to travel anecdotes. A smile never reached his eyes. It was an actor's mask. I noted every detail, the way he avoided specifics, the calculated charm. As the meal ended, Nick raised his glass. Uncle, Aunt, I truly respect this family. I hope to become part of it soon. Mom teared up. Dad nodded. Brooke glowed. My stomach twisted. After, as Nick and Brooke stepped out for photos in the yard, I cornered Mom in the kitchen. Mom, don't you think Nick's a bit too perfect? She frowned. Nathan, you're suspicious again. He's kind, loves Brooke, from a good family. Don't you? Want your sister happy? Shook my head, biting back arguments. Nick Harrington was a puzzle, and I'd solve it. The drive back to Boston was heavy, Nick's smile haunting me. I'm not paranoid or jealous, but instinct screamed caution. Newsroom. I fired up my laptop, typing Nick Harrington into the Herald's database. Surface hits. Puff pieces on Harrington Industries. I called Charlie, my New York Times buddy specializing in financial dirt. Charlie, anything on Harrington Industries? He chuckled. Nathan, you've stirred a hornet's nest. Companies deep in. Debt rumors of bankruptcy. They're masters at cover-ups. Digging's risky, heart racing, I pressed. Send what you have. Weeks later, Charlie's email arrived. You owe me a beer. Inside, Harrington owed $30 million. Investors fleeing. Financial sleight of hand. Then the bombshell a note on Nick's 2019 sexual harassment lawsuit settled quietly. Blood pounded. In my ears, harassment. And Brooke planned to marry him. I dug deeper, calling a Boston court source. Details emerged. A female employee accused Nick of misconduct on a trip. Settled for cash, no verdict, but her statement lingered. He cornered me, said cooperate or lose your job. I pictured Brooke in that position, my promise from childhood. Echoed, I called her. No answer. Texted, need to talk about Nick. Response. Stop ruining things. I'm happy. She answered later, voice icy. Nathan, Nick's not like the others. Don't investigate. Brooklyn and I found things. Companies bankrupt and worse. She cut in. Jealous? You want me miserable like you? Click. Parents were no better. Mom sighed. Nathan, he's from a good family. Barked. Stop assuming everyone's evil. Alone in my apartment, river lights mocking me, I pored over more docs from an anonymous source. Inflated profits, Nick's involvement, Brooke was a pawn. I had to act, but how to convince a family enchanted by lies? Days blurred into obsession. Work suffered. My mind fixed on Brooke and Nick. Calls to her went unanswered or curt. Parents dodged the topic. Then Brooke texted, family gathering in Portland to discuss wedding. Come but no trouble, I sighed. I'd go with evidence. Portland's sky loomed. Gray storm brewing as I drove in. The house overflowed with relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, chatter and grilled meat scents filling the air. But wary glances greeted me. Dinner shifted to wedding talk. Brooke stood. Good news wedding at Oceanfront Hotel. Dream setup. But per tradition, bride's family covers costs. Groom's handle honeymoon silence. Mom stiffened. Dad frowned. 200,000. Aunt Mary gasped. Brooke nodded. Fair right. I boiled. Fair? They're shoving the bill on us, murmurs. Brooke glared. I stood. Nick's untrustworthy. Company's in debt, exploiting us. And he was sued for harassment. Chaos, Brooke screamed. You're ruining my happiness. Dad, enough? Nathan, you're destroying us, Mom cried. Relatives accused jealousy. Only Aunt Teresa's text offered hope. Meet after. I'll help. Asterisk. Outside, bay waves crashed. Teresa confirmed, company's shady. I'll dig with connections. That night in my old room, wind howling, I reaffirmed my promise. The storm was here. Morning brought heaviness. Back to Boston, Mom's email hit. Wedding. Budget, $250,000 total, $200,000 wedding. Dad's note, contribute $100,000 as a good brother. Lucky after your stunt. Pain stabbed. Excluded, yet demanded money like penance. Family blind to deception. No pity time. Messaged Teresa. Meet. Evening at Portland coffee shop. Sea breeze mixing with espresso. She pushed docs. $40 million debt. Inflated reports. Harassment? She nodded. Lawyer has statement. Careful on DA. Days of frenzy. Sources. Ex-employees. Wedding as. PR for investors. Brooke pawn. Sarah's statement gutted me. Groping threats. Imagine Brooke dash no. 3 days to wedding. Called Brooke. Proof meet. Hang up. Stop. Night before, prepped envelope. Speech. Risky. But for Brooke. Wedding day. Clear sky mocked turmoil. Looted up, drove to Hotel Palace by Sea. Luxury cars, media vans. Blended in lobby, guests glittering. Hall, Rose's band. Brooke radiant, trembling, parents tense. Teresa nodded. Ceremony started. Stepped forward. Wait. Silence. Brooke. Nathan. Dad. What the hell? Handed MC envelope. Breed. Projected docs. Debts. Harassment. Murmurs to chaos. Nick roared. Slander. Brooke worse, brother. Helen. Wedding canceled. Harringtons fled. Reporters swarmed. Family shattered. Dad ruined everything. Brooke ran sobbing. I left waves indifferent. Saved her, but lost all. Drive back. Void. Headlines blasted. Wedding implodes. Nathan destroys sister's day. Aunt. Be careful. Day's lonely. Colleagues stared. Charlie. Harrington suing. Family silent. Social media vilified. Only Teresa supported. You struck. Blow. Letter arrived. Retract or sue. Teresa. Bluff. Hold evidence. Work dragged. Missed family. Hoped for forgiveness. Year passed. Pain fresh. Harrington bankrupt. Nick arrested. Tax evasion. Abuse. Relieved. But Brooke silent. Aunt called. Come to Portland. Family needs you. Heart raced. Arrived. Mom hugged. Teary. Sorry. Wrong. Dad. Blamed unfairly. Brooke. Sobbing embrace. You were right. Saved me. Table talk healed cracks. Meal warm. Left with hope. Truth costs, but brings forgiveness. Family back.